Hi, welcome to the DIY Photo Organising Podcast. I'm Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Simply in Order Photo Organising. Imagine you can find any photo at any time at the click of a button. We are here to show you how.
So let's get started.
Hello and welcome to our episode 8 of the DIY Photo Organising podcast. Today we are going to talk about how to create a yearly photo book.
Yes.
Hi Fiona.
Hello Chantal. Hi everyone. Lovely to have you listening in again.
Yeah. So,
All
shall
right.
we start?
Yeah, let's dive right in.
So we thought, because at the time of the recording it's like January, and we thought it's a good point in time to talk about an annual photo book, because lots of people want to do that, and I think almost all of my clients always tell me, I'd like to do a yearbook.
It's like an ideal project.
Yeah. And it is a great project.
It is.
It's good to do that.
Yep.
So we thought we're going to share a few tips and ideas that we think or thoughts that should be considered before diving in and just, randomly start designing a photo book.
Exactly.
What should we think about first, maybe, and take into consideration?
Yeah, just to help you as you're listening, just to help you really make it happen, because I think it's, it is an ideal sort of project for people to have. But again, like a lot of things, once they sort of just even think and start, it's just too overwhelming. So we thought that it would be great to give a bit of a structure and some encouragement to say, just, once you've got the process going, and it's such a worthwhile project to do, and it's, little steps along the way, and it's not so overwhelming, and then it can happen.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So jump right in. Do you want to start then? You go for it.
I go? Okay,
all right.
I go then.
All right.
So one of the first things to consider, I think, should be the look of the photo book.
Mm-hmm.
How do you want it to look in the end? You know, and already there's always lots of options, but you can really keep it simple. So one thing that I always decide right pretty much from the start, actually, is the size.
Yes,
and
the size.
Shape. Do I want square? Do I want landscape format or portrait?
Mm-hmm.
And the size of that within that.
Yes.
Personally, I think most of the time I go landscape.
Yeah,
shape.
I do
How
too.
about you?
Yep,
Yeah.
I do. I've done a few square as well. But yeah, and I think also when considering like where it's going to be stored, is it on a sort of shelf that's a smaller shelf, or simple things like that, I think can even just help make those decisions. But
I've also experienced that sometimes, obviously when you order your book, it gives you the size and all that. And because I'm coming from Switzerland, so we're using the metric system, and often they use inches and all that, and that does my head in. So I usually actually go and measure. I take my tape measure and have a look. Okay, all right, that's how big it is. And sometimes it's deceptive. I was convinced, okay, I picked the right size, and then I go and measure it. Oops, that's got to be a bit too big, or, oh, that's tiny.
Yeah.
I need the next up. So, double check if you're not sure.
Or even find a book in your own bookcase and look at that size that you like, and then just measure it and just say, that's the sort of the size that I want.
Just visualise it a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So size of book, maybe another thing too that we'll just add in to let people know to have a look at as I think about when they're thinking about the look of the book is also the cover type. So what sort of what cover do you want? There's a few options out there. You can get sort of a soft covered book, a hard covered book. You can get books with the jacket on them. Again, it's just really a personal taste. All of it. There's no right or wrong. And we really stress, don't get hung up on it. Because again, like we've talked about in all of our other episodes, just moving forward is the key here. When you're doing a DIY photo organizer, it's really doing it yourself. You've just got to keep moving forward. And so definitely all these things to consider, but don't get too hung up on it, because next year or, another time during the year, you can just choose a different option and and see what you prefer.
Yeah. There's also things like if you want to go really fancy and, have that luxurious, is that the
luxurious
look? There's also linen options or even leather, or you can have it embossed and, all fancy
some
stuff.
of the stuff, exactly.
Can get quite expensive too.
It can, and it really can. There's so many different options out there, and I think it depends on, if it's for a keepsake, as opposed to, just a quick put together, or if it's a gift, or it really, again, not to get too hung up on it, but definitely good options to consider in the long term when you're getting these things done, and also the type of paper to use. So and just there's gloss, there's matte, just as there are in print. Printed photos, and even in the layout, just of the lay flat options or that magazine style. So there's some great options out there, and a lot of companies are very flexible on those. So we would really suggest that when you're looking at doing and considering creating your yearly book, just have those decisions up front, because it can be the stumbling block, I think, for some people. It's too many options, and then they get stuck, and then So
do we need to explain what lay flat means?
So the lay flat is when you've opened up an album and there's no bend in the middle. So like a magazine style, you've got the arch sort of as the magazine would fall, and then this is a flat, completely flat. So there's no seam in the middle of the book, and it looks as though it's one big page. They are often a little bit more expensive option, but just for a full, long panoramic, or you've got some wording that you don't want to see in the crease of the book, if you've got a gutter. So those lay flat just are perfectly flat when you lay them on the table.
Very good.
So that's how they look. Yeah.
Right.
Printing options, Chantal.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's kind of everything here today goes like a bit hand in hand, because printing options, depending on which printer you go, this might also then give you certain options of sizes and formats that others might not offer. So it can depend a little bit with whom you're going in terms of how many options and what kind of options you get when you do all these decisions. So basically you can simply pretty much walk into, we would call it on-the-spot printing.
Yes.
For example, if you walk into a stationery or an office supply shop, and they usually offer photo book printing as well, and you could have done it there. You would find that in every bigger city or even smaller city. They're everywhere. Then another thing that I personally always consider, I like to shop local. So I do like to use local suppliers, and we're here in Melbourne, Australia, so local to me means really Australia-wide, because we're big in size, but in terms of population, we're actually not that big. So there's not that many suppliers. And personally, I like to use a company in Sydney, Momento, they're called, and we put the link in the show notes. They're really, high-end quality. I'm very happy with what they deliver. And I use another company that's local to Melbourne, but that's just me. I really do like and prefer local,
absolutely.
if possible.
And I think you've also got just a little bit more control over if something goes wrong, if something doesn't turn up, and I think when people are considering doing books, photo books in general, whether it's a yearly book or a specific event book, ideally, we all take photos to enjoy them, and so if this is one way to then, view those photos, that it'll be something that people will do more frequently. So I think knowing who you're using and being able to have that relationship with them, as far as just being able to have a voice on the phone to call in local time too, is good, and keep that within the local area. So I think some of the other things too is to consider maybe how many books you want printed. So that's something to consider when you're looking at when you're going through some of these sort of early decision making processes, steps, as far as, you know, if this is going to be something for your own family, just for yourselves, or if you're also going to give that to grandparents or extended family or friends or something like that. So to have a look at some of those options as well.
And I would assume that it's probably quite common that people print more than one if they do a yearbook.
Yeah, I mean, even for children, to give to children, I think so too. Yeah, I mean, you put so much effort in. Yeah. At the end of the day, show as many people as you can.
That's right.
That's true. One other thing I just wanted to say, just about the on-the-spot printing options. We'll talk in a moment just also about how you would then come to the store with the file, because there's different types of software, and these could be either just the JPEG and you load it up and the actual book is created right there on site, or you can already have it, say, as a PDF or pre-prepared as pages, and then they can print it. And so there's a few options there, just as far as that on-the-spot printing.
Why don't you just talk a bit about how to design it, what your options are there.
Segue in there, Chantal. So when we're looking at actually designing and creating that book, once you've decided sort of who you want to go with and you've had a look around at some of the printing options, some of the companies actually have their own software. So, and they can either be online and you do the designing online in real time, or you can download their software, like in the company that you and I both use, Memento, in Sydney, and they have their own software, so that can be then designed offline, which just gives you, you know, it's just you're not dealing with any lag time. If you've got a slower internet or something like that, you can do it all in your own computer. So there's definitely that's one of the things to think about, as to how you're going to, what software you're going to use to design it. You could also do that on your own, just as if people are sort of software savvy out there in either Photoshop or something like that, where you can design your own pages individually and then create that into a book. But the software, some of the companies, just they're beautiful, so easy to use.
It is.
You can slide pages in and pages out. You can put photos in, move things around. There really are some great options. And then all the different type of embellishments and extras.
And that's where they do differ a bit, I found, with the different suppliers. Some of them have really, you know, an extensive offer on embellishment and frames and backgrounds and what have you. And that would probably be more for people that like scrapbooking. So that'd be great for them who, you know, if they want to decorate the photo to be more than others. And another thing, actually, talking about software, is what I noticed when I did my research for my own books, that with a lot of softwares you can only move spreads in the design. So a spread is at 2 pages. So when you open up left and right, that's a spread, and often you can only add or delete or move a spread, but not one page only. So if I want to remove the left page but not the right, I can't do that. So I did do some research and came up. That's when I found, you know, that they're different. And I did find software that does offer that option, that you can move around just one page. Memento is one of them, so that's a big plus for me, I find. Because when I design photo books, you know, some people, they really plan it in detail and what photo goes on which page, and I'm more a bit intuitive and I move stuff around and change things. So being able to move that one page has really helped.
Yeah, and also too, once you're sort of going through that process and you're in the middle of a project, you kind of pick up themes along the way, and then actually, I'm going to group all these together, and so then you go back and you can grab them out of different pages and create a different section, and that sort of just intuitively, as you say, comes through, and so to have that flexibility is great. It depends on how people go through it, but definitely, that's good. One of the other things also when you're looking at the design that we'd love to help you with, or just to think about too, are some sort of how you want it to look and read and feel, maybe with captions. There's a lot of detail you can put in. So this is really a snapshot of your gear that you might, you want to look back on, and so having stories within there, or just a classic look with just the photos and maybe headings and things like that. One of the things that is a great resource is also, say, Pinterest, to get some ideas and inspiration on how you'd like that to sort of look and feel, and there's definitely a lot of different styles. And obviously people's original main style will come through, whether it's a very classical look, like you say, a scrapbooking feel, it's fun and festive, or, it's more of a conservative, classical style of a presentation of that year in review. So what are some things, Chantal, maybe if you can help us with how to prepare? So just say people have sort of got a bit of an idea on some of the printers they want to use, maybe the look and feel of the book, and some of those styles and things. So what's the first sort of few things that people can do? Let's assume that they've already listened to our amazing podcast and they've got their photos all organised. They know where everything is and it's all in the one place in an ideal world.
Yes.
But okay, so how would we prepare and start moving forward?
Yeah, so of course we need photos to put in a book.
Yes, indeed.
That might be a good idea. So where do we get them from? As you just said, in an ideal world, they're coming out of the photo hub. That's nicely organised, and by a click of a button you would have all your photos of the past year that you want to have in your yearbook. And so that's the ideal case. But if you haven't got that, or if not yet, maybe I should say, maybe you've got all your photos on the phone. Let's assume that. So an easy way to do it is just to pick the favorites. On an iPhone it will just be the heart, click the heart, and you've got them all, and it's not that much work really to go back a year. It's feasible. And then you have an album, an automatic, actually it does that automatically. It puts them in a separate album on your phone with all your favorites, and then you go from there. That's, the ones that you add to your photo album. Yeah,
so maybe we might just step them through that one process. So just say you've got your phone, and we'll just go in and just, because I met a lady the other day who actually wasn't familiar with how to do a favourite on her photos.
Oh, there you go.
So say you're in photos, and then you've gone into your photo albums, into all photos. From there, you can just see the overview of all your photos and click into an actual photo. This is talking from an iPhone.
Yeah.
And then down at the bottom of the screen, right in the middle, there's an outline of a love heart. So if you click on that, it will turn blue, and that means it's now one of your favourites.
There you go.
Yeah, as easy as that. And so the way to find those favourites is if you go back into those albums view, you'll see there's an album there called Favourites. There you go. And so that's where they are.
Awesome.
So that's how
Thanks,
they can
Fiona.
do it. That's all right. So how else? Yes. What's another way?
So another way, let's assume you've got your photo hub, or your photos, whether they're organised yet or not, doesn't really matter at this point. But let's assume you've got them in a Mac, again in photos, and you could also, rather than using the favourites, you could add keywords.
Yep.
You could select your photos that you want in the yearbook, and you can select more than one at once. So on a Mac, that is command click, and
Mm-hmm.
you just click on them and stay on the command key. And once you've got them all, you could add a keyword, for example, ebook 2018.
Yes.
And then you can, gather them all and create your book from there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So once they've got them all in then the one folder, they can use them, select them from there as they're going through that process. Perfect.
And you can do the same on a PC. It's just called differently. So you could go and select your photos and add a tag, as they call it in the PC world. It's a tag, not a keyword. Or you could also use rating.
With
so
the stars.
On the PC, you've got the 5 stars.
Yeah.
But just, if you do that, I would recommend to note in your photo logbook or your notebook that every photo that has 5 stars is a photo that goes into the yearbook. So there you've got a bit of a system going, and you actually know what it means.
That's yes, great.
So I'm not a big fan. So for a case like the photo books, I do prefer keywords and tags rather than rating, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I think this is where, some people do get themselves in a bit of a mess because they've started something using one system and then they've sort of stopped and 6 months later they've thought about it again and then they can't remember what they've tagged and why or, it's just, So again, like we've talked about in earlier episodes, that journaling is a great way just to remind yourself of what you're doing and why. But yes, tagging and is a great way to do that on the PC.
How do you do it?
I do mine in photos. So I do the favourites, and then I favourite as I go along throughout the year, and then it's easier to put through.
That's the thing. If you stay on top of it, even if you do that like once a month, it's actually not a big deal then at the end of the year.
And if people really think about it, when they're in their phone and they've just taken a photo, by just habit now, we go back in and we look at it. We see the photo. Was it a good photo? Which, did I capture what I was after? If it was a group, is everyone, whatever it is. And at that point, we've already got in our mind what the favourite was. And that's where I would really encourage people, just pop that little love heart on there down the bottom. Just click it if you've done a burst or if you've of photos, if you've done, you've taken sort of 10 photos during the course of, a dinner that you've got with friends or something like that. And you know that there's 2 or 3 photos that are your favourites from that night, just pop the favourite on them straight away. And really it's a great habit to get into, and this is a perfect way to be able to then use that. But doing a little bit. So that's what I do. I do my favourite right there on the spot, and then it's done because you're in the moment. You've chosen that.
I know.
Instinctively you've done that anyway.
And you don't have to touch the same photo 10 times.
It's done.
You constantly need to go back and make decisions.
Yes.
That's a great
exactly. Exactly. So the last sort of thing that we thought we'd just help you through this as far as what to consider and in creating that yearly photo book is when you've chosen all the photos, you've got the design, you've got the layout, the printer's all set, you know which photos you're using, then we need to think about how it goes in there. Like what order, what do we want it to do? What are some of those options, Chantal, that we can use? The layout of that, putting it together.
Look, it can be really easy in terms of organising your book, so to speak. It can simply be weekly or monthly. Especially if your photos are already organised in a chronological order. That would be the easiest thing in the world, really. Because that's, you put them into that software and you can often actually choose when you start that book with the software, it tells you, okay, go and choose your photos. Then you go and you say, okay, these are the 100 photos I want to have in that book. You click OK, and it often gives you the option whether it should already create a book for you or whether you want to do that yourself and start from
that's
scratch.
a great feature.
So I
That's a good point.
I do that usually, and so it reads them in and it creates the book for me. And then all I do is move it around and rearrange things if I don't like it.
Yep.
But yeah, that's another time saver, really.
It is.
Especially when you do work chronologically. This is easy peasy. Yeah. So what else can we do?
So another option could be, you could even look at seasons. You could look at maybe travel. Like if you've done certain trips, you could look at different themes. So you could have a grouping even, say, for hobbies that you've got, or music or sporting sort of activities that have been done throughout the year. So even if, say, one of the family members plays a certain sport and they've played a range of different events, you know, through specific games and things throughout that whole year, you may then group all of those together rather than have it across the monthly sort of option. So there's, you know, it's just another way for people to look at it. And another option could be even by person. So it could be family members. So you could do a book. Maybe if you've got children, you could do a book, an annual book for each child, or you may do it for the immediate family, or you may do one for the extended family as a book. So there are a few of the other options and things to consider as to when you're putting it together.
Yeah, that's where I really like. That's what I like in the digital world, because it becomes a lot easier to create these books.
Yeah. Whereas in the old photo albums and stick them in and then try and unstick them.
And you know, you create it once and you order 5 of them. It's so much easier. That's something I really like about the digital world.
Yeah, it is. It does make it really easy, and then you can order them for for other family members, and then you can easily have them reprinted, and and then you're done. Photo book's done for the year, ready for the next year. So I hope that's given everyone some tips and some ideas to think about. And again, as always, we really encourage you just to do something with it. I think creating a yearly book, once you've done one, it really is something that, back in our old days of looking at our photo albums and you just think great. And, we take photos for a reason. Yeah. And let's enjoy them and share them around and have them sitting there with easy access to, for kids and others and family and grandparents to enjoy as well.
Everyone loves the good photo book.
That's true. Absolutely. And there's so many great options out there now. There really are. And they don't have to be expensive.
No, they don't.
They really
we'll put a few links in the show notes.
Yep, absolutely.
I think mostly they will be Australian suppliers. Some of them are international. But, we'll try and get a few for you there. And,
exactly. That'd be great. All right, wonderful. Well, thanks again, Chantal. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, always. Thank you.
We will talk to everyone again soon. Please pop any notes or future ideas for podcast topics at our Facebook page, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.
Bye. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of DIY photo organising and found some inspiration, useful tips and strategies to support your photo projects.
We'd love to invite you to pop over to our Facebook page, DIY Photo Organising, and we welcome your questions, feedback, and any future topics that you'd like us to cover. If there is someone you'd love to share this with, please click on Share to help others take control of their photos too. Remember, have a look through our show notes for links to helpful information. I'm Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Simply in Order Photo Organising. And remember, we believe in you and you can do this.